Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you get anything from my work, a connect the dot, a mushroom cloud moment, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links will be linked below the video. Oahspe, the book of Fragapatti. We're doing chapter 30 to 35. Before I begin, I hope everybody's doing good with all the energies going around. Also, be mindful as I read these books. A little bit of a disclaimer: I don't follow all the books. I know there's a lot of people here that follow the words. Only take what resonates with you. I think it's important that all these books that I read are read and you discern what's in them. As I am developing my, as we all should be, discernment, it grows every day. And I question a lot of things, and a lot of things I'm getting downloads from. All these books are pointing to, just in my varied opinion, is bits of truth, but they've been handed down from different entities that claim they're gods. This book is an example of that. Don't ever take anything as the Bible, as this is it and this is the only thing that I'm going to follow. You're doing yourself a disservice, in my opinion, and I'm not here to disrespect anybody in your faith, religious beliefs, or followings. I'm here to open wide your mind to thinking and questioning what you are reading. So I don't want to be the harbinger of, negativity, and that's not my drive to do this. It's to pluck the truth out of the things that I see in the books, but also read them. So I just want to put that out there. I value all of you. For whatever reason you come and you have found me, thank you. And thank you for your continued support. And that can just be by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Just want to put that prefix out there because I get some emails and people think I follow. I don't follow anything. I tick to my own talk and I get what I get downloaded. And a lot of people are getting downloads and a lot of people are sharing these things. I try not to do such things unless it's, spread it. But again, discernment. We're all on different paths, different journeys. We all have different modes of operandi that we signed a contract upstairs with for experiences, purposes only. Everything you have in this life is an experience. So please take each and every one of these things as a learning experience. Chapter 30. So for one day there was great rejoicing in Meru, and when it was ended and the people retired to their respective places, the lights were raised for business. Fragapatti said to Atharava, "Come thou and resume Jehovah's throne. As for myself, I will go now and establish another habitation in Zedho. And after that, I will visit the Lord's gods of the divisions of the earth. And when I have completed these labors, it will be near the end of the dawn of Dan. See to it, therefore, that all who wish to prepare for the third resurrection be duty noted and notified." And now, when Fragapatti had risen up from the throne, swift messengers were announced from Sethintes, the inhabitor of earth. The marshals were commanded to admit them, and presently they swift measures and messengers came in, greeting in Jehovah's name. They said, sends love to Fragapatti. When the resurrection of this dawn is come, Sethantes will visit Meru, and he will also bring with him Onansi, first deliverer of brides and bridegrooms of the first harvest of the earth. What do you think is about to happen now? We're at the end of a dawn of Dan. When the message had been thus delivered, there was great rejoicing in the capital. Fragapatti thanked the messengers in the Father's name, and after that, the swift messengers withdrew. Presently, Fragapatti withdrew also, taking Horeb and Hapacha with him. And when they departed out of the capital and came to the Alvanza, the marshals had accompanying hosts assembled 10 million. And so they entered the ship, and amidst music and rejoicing, they departed, going direct to the kingdom of Yima, Lord God of Shem and her heavens. Yima had been notified of their coming and had Pismars, a rowboat. Again, I apologize for a mispronunciation, made in order to go to meet them. The Pismar was sufficient to carry 10,000 musicians, 30,000 rowers, 200,000 travelers, and such were the numbers who embarked on her to meet Fragapatti. 3 years had now elapsed since Yima set out to establish the Father's kingdom in the heavens of Shem, and save through messengers, little was known in Meru. In Eber's labors, Fragapatti had said of him, Yima liveth with the voice, he cannot err. And the seventh diaphragm of the east, Api, the vessels met. And Fragapatti opened the lower division of the Alvanza and took in Yima's boat and crew, passengers, amidst music and rejoicing. And after due ceremonies, Fragapatti caused the Alvanza to proceed, conducted by Leaps, one of Yima's messengers, and they proceeded rapidly until they arrived at Astropheth, the capitals of Yima's kingdom in Atmospheria, first grade resting upon the earth. Chapter 31. After Yima's appointment by Fragapatti, he had come to these regions, and finding great darkness upon both spirits and mortals, he besought Jehovah to know the cause and cure thereof. The voice of Jehovah came to Yima, saying, whether spirits or mortals, they seek rather to obey their own self-desires than my commandments. Behold, I sent them Apollo, and he gave them intercourse betwixt the two worlds, angels and mortals. And for a season they held up their heads and remembered me and my kingdoms. But presently they turn everything upside down and built on their own account. I had shown them that by industry and perseverance they could obtain to knowledge and power, but because mortals discovered that prophecy could come from the spirits of the dead, they ceased to perfect themselves, and they grew up in idleness. The angels loved not to labor to achieve my exalted heavens, being contented with the lowest. And they likewise fell in darkness, forgetting me in my higher places above. I call out to my son Osiris, saying, go thou down to the earth in her heavens, and build them up in my name. Yea, they shall wall them apart, that there shall be no communion betwixt the two worlds, save to my chosen. We're all chosen. And Osiris came and fulfilled my commandments to mortals, be provided them that no spirit could come to them. As for the spirits that infested the earth about, he drove them away and colonized them, and he cut them off from the earth. And for a season mortals prospered under my judgments, and they sought to improve the talents I created withal. But again they confounded my judgments and perverted my laws. Every man on earth hath a philosophy of his own. Every spirit in these heavens hath a philosophy of his own, and there is no uniformity between any of them. Hear me then, my son, thou shalt not teach as Osiris did, nor yet as Apollo, but pursue a mean betwixt the two. Thou shalt select them, permitting certain spirits to return to mortals, and permitting certain mortals to obtain suis and sugris, and to see and commune with the spirits. But thou shalt provide them in judgment, making the process of intercommunion a secret amongst mortals. For in this thou shalt shut off the jujas of heaven and the druks on earth. Behold, my son Sati, who will come this way, labor thou with him in Zarathustra, and to God's hands have I given my decrees. He shall build on the earth, build thou in heaven. As he buildeth for mortals, build thou for the spirits of the intermediate world. But keep thou open the doorway to my holy places in the heavens above. Chapter 32. Yima inquired of Jehovah, and the voice answered him, saying, Go thou from place to place in these heavens, and prove thy power. To the ignorant, power is antecedent in gaining the judgment, after power, wisdom. The fool saith, What canst thou do that I cannot? But when he seeth the power that cometh from my hand, he openeth his ears and eyes to teach men and angels to unite. How have they not failed on all hands? Mortals have said, It is good to be good, but it is not practicable. They have said, It is wise to be wise, but wisdom runneth in 1,000 roadways, every man for himself. The angels of these regions have said, It is good for us to unite into kingdoms, to have gods and lords. But who can unite us? Shall we sell our liberty to one person? But they will not unite. They dwell in harmony. Everyone taketh the earnings of another. The profit of one is the injury of others. They are barren of united good. Jehovah said, One kingdom may have good men and many good women, but be of no good as a kingdom. I measure not the individuals, but the entire household. I judge the virtue of a kingdom by its combined harvest delivered unto my keeping. When a kingdom is aggregating to itself more wisdom and virtue, the amount of its increase is my harvest. When a kingdom cannot retain its own members, it is falling away from me. The uprightness of its few is as nothing in my sight. The secret of the power of a kingdom lieth in its capacity to aggregate in my name and obey my commandments. For 100 days, Yima went through the lower heavens, displaying the miracles of the upper heavens, and his hosts, many of whom traveled with him, enlisted pupils, particularly collecting the spirits of young children. And in 100 days, he had many millions of spirits, abracadabras, mostly helpers, wanderers. With these, he repaired to Astaroth and made ready to find his kingdom. Jehovah spake to him, saying, Fear not, my son, because the helplessness of thy subjects. He who start a new kingdom is wise in choosing none who have hobbies of their own. Whosoever goeth forth in my name, I will be with him. Yima inquired of Jehovah, who should be appointed assistant God? And the voice answered, Thule. So Yima appointed Thule, and he made Habal chief marshal of the capital. Again, the voice of Jehovah came to Yima, saying, Thou shalt appoint unto Shem 100 lords, and they shall have dominion over mortals. Hear thou the voice of the Creator. Thou, my son Zarathustra, will I establish temples to my lords and gods, and thou shalt so provide thy heavenly kingdom, that thy Lord shall inhabit the temples, communing with the rabbis, who shall be called God-ers. But the communion betwixt spirits and mortals shall be known only to the God-ers, and to the sub-priests under them. But mortals shall be left to believe that these fathers have obtained spirit communion by great purity and wisdom. Likewise, when Drudra is manifest to mortals, it shall not be countenanced, but as a mark of evil raised against truth. Interesting. And when thou hast established thy kingdom, and thou shalt cut off the supplies of the Drudras, so they will become borrowers for thy people. In this manner they will in time consent to labor. Yema then appointed 100 lords, who became as the roots to the tree of heaven. The Ashuin lords were, and I do apologize with the name pronunciations, Ithra, Yatas, Mikros, Jube, Zarust, Hum, Her Osiris, Vadiv, Nadasha, Cope, and Dorun. The Theastius lords were Kashvari, Tush, Yin, Amesh, Amisha, Armati, YV, Vahos, Vastava, and Komik. The general lords were called Hashem with voice, that is to say, Hashem Vahu, lords in chief, given for the kingdoms of the sun in the land of Shem. They were the Shinata, Zethius, Mutu, Ario, Keshias, Keira, Shekara, Theretim, Ganabe, To, Borishi, Habarasha, Padiscoramia, Hayuis, Haktad, Anarana, Tibalath, Kevar, Dar-un Asa, Whores, swear, Maid O Yeshimo, Runas, Gai Moratashi, Ba'araya, Zarushta, Kai Borish, Wishto Benas, and Sitama. And Yima made these 25 lords controllers of the voice, with mortals to take the place of Samati after the death and ascension of Zarathustra, for which they were called the Hashem Vahu. And the lords of the farmers and the herdsmen were, oh, this is like a whole pair. Oh gosh. Goma, Hoshtag, Tamor, Jamisht, Redin, Minno, Shabani, and Hus. The lords of the seafaring men were Thitas, Marajan, Nias, Kafratis, Thrava, Driva, Agret, Ardulus Salor, Tanafar, Botes, Marjan Ista, Hokestenia, and Vartuan. Sorry, guys, I have more names to butcher because, you know, that's what this book does. The lordess of births and mothers, the Hotachichi, were Kavati, Wehuts, Haud, Enchor Hati, Juvas, Wista, Hopani. I don't even know. I'm going to skip that one because that don't make sense to my eyes. Avampu, Kadan, Herkrova, Dion, Bokwo, and Gamyasi. The lords of the buildings were Athrama, Har-Athusina, Hydius, Hutu, Koi Gaga, Harawati, Vivision, Mutahaga, Kaios, Maiko, Ames, Hodo, Tursuvi, Verikapaga, and Sai. The lords of timekeeping, Ashis, who had dominion over the change of watch, were Kapor Astias, Ras, Varati Mohu, and Wo Witchwak. Jehovah spake to Yima, saying, in this day will I bless thy labor, because mortals have ceased to believe in the immortality, and they have shut off the intercourse with Jujas, for which reason thou shalt establish pure communion with thy pure lords and none other. Yima sent his lords in their several places, and every lord took with him 1,000 attendant angels. Yima said to them before they departed, see to it, O ye lords, in your several places stir the people up, and wherever ye find kings or queens or generals surrounded by spirits, to urge them to, in their affairs, cut off those spirits, leaving the mortals destitute in inspiration, and their kingdoms and armies will become disorganized and helpless. And whenever Samadhi and Zarathustra come to a city, go ye also laboring with them. And when Zarathustra holdeth up his arms and saith, O Father, light of thy light, gather ye of the substance around about, and shield with the wall of fire. And if Zarathustra say, O Father Arzman, give thy children food, then shall ye cast down from the air above fish and fruit. And if a king or a captain raise a hand against Zarathustra, gather ye about him and shield him. And if a man draw a sword against Zarathustra, catch ye a blade and break it into pieces. Jehovah spake to Yima, saying, the time will come when the present mortal kingdoms will fall, but the followers of Zarathustra will succeed. Them under the Zarathustrian law shall be protected, even as ye during the dawn protected Zarathustra. For which reason thy lord shall raise up another lords to take their places after the ascent of this dawn. And it shall come to pass that all light and all truth and all success shall come to mortals through the priests, the rabbis, who shall succeed Zarathustra. But as for kings and great cities, who shall not accept my light, they shall go down in darkness, and their kingdom shall fall to pieces. Yima, having established his lords, now turned his attention to the heavenly kingdoms of Hades. 33. Jehovah said to Yima, thou shalt separate the spirits, the party light, from the holy dark. Build thou, therefore, a throne and a plateau sufficient for 3,000 million souls. And because there are more females than males, thou shalt call the place of thy throne a story. And when they hast provided a house for the council, thou shalt send forth selectors, who shall bring unto thee as many as chose to come, and these shall be the foundation of thy kingdom. Yima proceeded as commanded by the Father, and presently he had congregated about Astaroth a sufficient number to establish places of amusement, places of worship, and places of learning. Again, the voice came to Yima, saying, because thy kingdom is attractive, thou art flooded with idlers, who are no profit to any person in heaven or earth. To keep them away, they shall wall the kingdom around the pillars of fire. For thus have I created man, that to whom putteth him away, he will return with zeal. Because thou shalt make thy labors seclusive, they will run from thee. And when they come to thee, thou shalt bargain with them for righteous behavior erst, thou feedest them. And when thou hast thus gathered in all whom come in this way, thou wilt not yet have that half. But those who are left will be without judgment, and thou shalt take possession of them and bestow them in colonies, and thou shalt rank them. The lowest of all shall be the first rank, Those who come after the pillars of the fire are built shall be the second rank, and those who come with the selector shall be called the third rank. And thou shalt divide thy own hosts. Those who go with thy lords down to the mortals as guardian spirits shall be called Ashars, and they shall bring the spirits of the newly dead and deliver them to thy hosts in heaven, which hosts shall be called Asaphs. And the Ashars shall drive all spirits away from the mortals, save such as an appointed by thee or the lords. For above all things shalt thou seek to become controller over mortals to the end that they become faithless in me and my dominion. Gima then divided the spirits of heaven according to the commandments of the Creator, after he took possession of the wandering spirits of darkness, whether they were on earth or in heaven, and he had them taken into places prepared for them. And he provided them the physicians, nurses, and teachers that they shall make to understand that they were dead as to their earth bodies, and they must give up the earth. After this, Yima established places of learning in heaven and places of labor, teaching the angels to clothe and feed themselves by their own industry. Again, the voice of Jehovah came to Yima, saying, Behold, my son, the lower heaven hath reached Oahspe. It is therefore the time in which angels of the first grade be taught to build heavenly mansions. Yima commanded the teachers and the superintendents of factories to prohibit the spirits from returning to mortals, save by permission. Yima said, It is wiser to inspire spirits to raise in heaven after death than to have them ever drawing the angels down to earth. And my lords on earth shall labor to this end also. So Yima taught new inspirations, both in heaven and on earth, which were that the angels of the dead should build homes in heaven for their kindred, and that mortals should be taught that there were mansions in heaven ready for their souls after death. Yima said mortals become founded in this belief will not so readily become wandering spirits after death. While this Yima was thus building in heaven, his lords with their attendant spirits were manifesting on earth as had never been before since the foundation of this world. The temples of the stars were broken and thrown down by the spirits. The iron gates of the cities were taken off and carried into the forests. The palaces of kings and queens were unroofed, and the stones of the walls of the palaces were hurled from their places. Even to the foundation, one stone was not left upon another, and these things were done by the spirits of heaven. And men and women and children were carried in the air by the angels and unharmed. The household goods were carried out, and the food of the table stripped off. Even as mortals sat down to feast, they were made to behold the food going away. With their own eyes beheld they these things. And mortals were made to see visions and to dream dreams of prophecy, and to have unusual powers. And in many places the spirits took off sagris, walked about amongst mortals, being seen and felt, and they talked audibly, explaining to mortals in dominion of Yima and his lords. And all things that Yima and his hosts did in heaven, his lords worked in harmony with him in their labor on earth. Nevertheless, they were also vagrant spirits on earth, who belonged not to the kingdoms of heaven, but who made manifestations on their own account, and they were given to lying and to flattery and to evil generally. Yima little by little cut off these evil spirits and took them away to his colonies and disciplined them. Since then, when were Yima's labors, when Fragapatti came to see him to honor such occasion, Yima had proclaimed recreation in Astaroth and invited his lords and captains and others to be present and take part in a season of enjoyment. Very interesting. Chapter 34. On the arrival of the Avanza, the ensuers of Azareth and the trumpeters of the colony sang and played, being joined by the hosts aboard the vessels. And when they ceased, Thuli assisted God of Azareth, commanded the marshals to receive the hosts, foremost of whom were Yima and his attendants, preceded by his traveling marshals and harpers, the latter being 5,000 females, led by Ayurtris, goddess of Pho-Isana in Etheria. And after these came the marshals of Fragapatti, 10,000. Then the swift messengers, 10,000. Then Fragapatti, on whose left was Yatanti, and whose right was Horb. And these were followed by the musicians, and then carried hosts in general. Yima ascended the throne at once, but Fragapatti and his hosts halted in the arena, within the circuit of the altar. Next beyond these were the guards of the lights, and still outside of these were the crescent members of the council. Yima said, in the name of Jehovah, I welcome thee, O Fragapatti, chief of Absad and Gumachala, to the throne of God. In his wisdom and power, I would have thee honor Ashtoreth by taking possession in the Father's name. Without replying, Fragapatti walked alone to the throne, saluting on the sign of high noon, which Yima answered in the setting sun. Yima stood aside, and Fragapatti ascended and stood in front of the middle of the throne. He said, into thy possession, O Jehovah, receive thou this, thy throne. Hardly had Fragapatti spoken when a light bright as the sun settled above his head, and a voice came out of the midst of the light, saying, to thee, my son, and to thy son, and to my gods and lords, and to all who follow them in my name, do I bequeath this, my throne, forever. Whosoever becometh one with me shall not only hear my voice and receive my power, but also inherit that which he createth out of my creation. Jehovah's voice continued, saying, whosoever looketh upon my works and saith, behold, I cannot cope with these elements, is short in faith and wisdom, for I have not created in vain, that either mortals or spirits cannot control my elements in their respective places. They shall improve the talents I have given them. I made the earth wide and filled it with many things, but I gave man a foundation that he might obtain to the mastery of land and water and minerals and all the living. Yeah, I gave him a corporeal body to practice with, and as an abiding place for the assistance of his own soul. And I created atmospheria wider than the earth and filled it with all manner of spiritual things and with the substance of plateau, but I gave also to the spirits of the dead talents which can obtain to the mastery of all things in atmospheria. Whoever hath obtained to these things is like a traveling sun. My light is upon him. He prepareth the place, and my voice cometh out of the light thereof. Let my sons and daughters stir themselves up, where they are gathered together in my name. There am I also. My hand is upon them. My power becometh one with them, and my voice is possible in their midst. The voice ceased. There were many present who had not previously heard the voice of all light. And because of the brilliancy, they were blinded for a while, but presently restored. Fragapatti then said, Horb and Yatanti, come ye and sit on the throne. And they went up and sat on the throne, and in the same time the ensuers chanted, Hail to the great Jehovah's voice. His sons and daughters of thousands of years are returned once more to their native red star to proclaim his boundless glory. Fragapatti said, in the Father's name, I proclaim a day of recreation to resume labor at the sound of the trumpet in the east. And now the hosts mingled together freely, being buoyant with cheerfulness. And during the recreation, millions of Etherians went out into the plateau, visiting the places of learning, the factories and hospitals, and such places as belong to the lower heavens. On the next day, at the call of the trumpet, the people resumed their places. After the music, Fragapatti said, to thee, O Thuli, will I speak in the name of Jehovah. Thou art chosen by the Father to be an assistant to Yima, Jehovah's son, during this dawn, which is near its end. And after that, thou shalt be Lord and God of these heavens and of the earth beneath for 200 years. Because thou art wise and good, the Father hath raised thee up, and great is thy glory. That thou mayest have strength and power, thou shalt in thy reign be called Yima, Also, for the time hath now come to the earth, when mortals must learn to know the lords and gods who rule over them. During 200 years, will the earth be traveling in my Orion field, Gumachala, and thou shalt be one with me in thy dominions. Whosoever thou shalt require at my hands, I will send to thee. Thou shalt therefore keep thy place in order, and if thou needest of Aji, I will send it. If thou nearest Dan, I will send it. Be less concerned about the spirits in thy heavens than about the mortals on earth. Mortals must have sufficient Aji, that the race become not extinct. They must have sufficient Dan, that they become not as beasts. For which reason, every 11th year, thou shalt number abracadabra, and supply my swift messengers with the list thereof. And I will bring the elements of Gumachala to bear upon the labor profitably to the Father. In the next place, be thou careful of too much latency toward the spirits in the first resurrection. Suffer them not to abide the mortals as teachers. Remember thou that mortals so love their dead kindred, they would even deprive them of heavenly education for the sake of having them around about them. Remember also that the spirits of the recent dead, who are entered as Assyrians in all good heavens, so love their mortal kindred that they would seek no higher heaven than to linger around about them on the earth, which habit groweth upon them, so that in 2 or 3 generations they become Drudras, worthless to themselves, knowing little of earth and less in heaven. Be thou firm, therefore, in holding dominion over the Assyrians, permitting them only to return to mortals under guard, and especially preventing them to teaching other than the Oahsmanian religion. After this thou shalt be circumspect in Azareth, remembering that it is part of a God to provide his kingdom for the development of all the talents Jehovah hath created withal. For thou shalt so cunningly labor in recreation and rest and learning, each and every one is of equal attraction. And whether thy commandments be for angels or mortals, thou shalt first of all, at last of all, inspire them to have faith in the Creator and to follow the little star of light he hath given to every soul. Fragapatti ceased. Jehovah said, I have drawn my crescent and my altar. Whoever would hear my voice and heed my commandments, let them hearken to the forms and ceremonies that shape the soul of things. I am order, I am stateliness without severity. I am love without passion. I am wisdom by suggestion and without dictation. I am the most silent, for most powerful. I am the least seen, but always present when asked for. And now, since the people's knew Fragapatti was about to depart, the proper officers arranged matters that all could pass in front of the throne to receive his blessing. Accordingly, the ensuins commenced singing and procession began. The master of the lights of the council lowered them, and Fragapatti lowered his own lights and came down and stood at the foot of the throne, covered with light drapery, which fell down to his feet. His hands held upward, waving gently, and his created drapery and perfume and wreaths of flowers, and bestowed something upon every soul that passed, of whom there were more than 10,000. And when the procession had all passed, Fragapatti sat down at the foot of the throne. Then came down Yima and took his hand, saying, Son of Jehovah, arise and go thy way, and the Father be with thee. So Fragapatti rose and departed, and Horeb and Yatanti and Yima and Thuuli with him, and Yima left her Torah, goddess of Milu, on the throne of Azareth. So they entered the Alvanza, and with music and rejoicing departed on their journey, and Yima conducted them without his dominions, both in heaven and on earth. For many days Fragapatti thus dwelt with Yima and Thuuli, after he had inspected their labors, and his recorders completed their record, which was to be afterward taken to Ethera and deposited in the libraries of Fragapatti's dominions. Yima took leave, and his Pledmizar was discharged, and he departed for Azareth, whither he arrived in due season. But Fragapatti proceeded to dominions of Oahspe, lord of Jaith, and her heavens. Chapter 35. The voice of the Creator was with Oahspe from the time of his landing in these lower heavens, and Oahspe chose from his hosts a council of 10,000, and they sat in a living altar, and the voice directed him to build a capital and a throne, called the plateau thereof Shanghai, that which he did. And when it was completed, Jehovah said to Oahspe, Thou art my Lord and my God, the labor of thy hand shall endure on the earth and in heaven. Whatsoever thou buildest, I will build, for thou art my holy place. Make thyself an oft-ven, and go around about in thy dominions, and inspect all things, making a record of the same, which shall be deposited in the libraries of these heavens, that angels and mortals in after ages may read them. Ahoan made an octaven and traveled as commanded, making a record and preparing also a place of records in Shanghai, where these things were deposited, of which these words are a brief transcript. That is, these heavens are without order of organization, save one kingdom, ruled over by Oahspe, who falsely styleth himself Thor, the only begotten son of Jehovah. The sons of these heavens are mostly of the first resurrection. Nevertheless, there are millions of them who believe they are not dead, and for the greater part, these are in chaos, still lingering on battlefields or in places where they were cut off from the earth. In many places, there are spirits who set up colonies, trying to provide themselves with homes and clothing and to find heavenly abodes. They are forever overrun and pillaged by Judras. With and around about the people of Jaith, there are more than 2,000 million angels who know not how to get away from the earth. Of these, millions of them are fetals, making themselves as twin spirits to mortals. These spirits oft show themselves to mortals, but are believed to be doubles. But the spirits thus bound know not themselves who they are, or whence they came, neither can they go away from the mortals to whom they are bound, and are whom they live. As for the mortals of Jaith, they have cities of warriors, large and fierce. The earth of this region has been in Jahai 1,300 years. After Ahoan had thus discovered the condition of things, he returned to Shanghai and then sat in council, and Jehovah said to Ahoan, 40 lords shalt thou appoint to dwell on the earth, and to each lord thou shalt give 10,000 assistants, and these lords shall go down to the earth and drive away the Judras, and take possession of the kings and queens' palaces, of the temples of the stars, and they shall obtain control over the captains and generals of armies, blind their judgment, and lead them astray, so they will be powerless in war and destruction. And when Samati, god of Zarathustra, traveleth to Jahath, thy Lord shall go with him with a sufficient number of angels to accomplish successfully all that Zarathustra profess in my name. And thy Lord shall shield Zarathustra around about, that no harm come to him. And when enemies pursue him, thy lords shall lead them astray, or detain them till such time as will enable Zarathustra to escape. For in this dawn shall my word be established on earth, to perish not forever. And when thou hast thus established thy lords, thou shalt colonize thy heaven, giving them 70 colonies. But Shanghai shall be the central kingdom. Thou shalt choose from amongst the atmospherians one who shall be thy assistant god, who shall sit on the throne during thy absence. And thou and thy holy council shall instruct thy assistant god in such a manner that when this dawn is ended, he shall become God in my name of saying he for the next succeeding 200 years. Oahspe informed the council of the words of Jehovah, And Ahon appointed the 40 lords as commanded, also appointing his assistant. These then were the lords appointed to wit, first to have control over the word of God on earth, the Swing Bin, Go Makit, Ben Hung, Shiang, Bagui, Atong, Mingwi, Tuk, Gunk Boy, Yakhoi, and Wach. Second, to have control over the palaces and kings and queens and temples, Minna, Achwing, Ayat, Yo Gong, O Ont, Yongui, and Ama. Third, to have control over armies and kingdoms, Kiraka, Gio Young, B, Guanguk, Gio Young, Samson, and Deeth. Fourth, to have control over seafarers, Shapgi, Aganha, Rocks, and Low. Fifth, to have control over mothers and births, Songhing, Sumkak, Gyanghati, Agni Kawas, and Ho Ava. Sixth, to have control over marriages. First, Louis is general, and then Assam, Onis, Yatsam, Avit, Gant, and Sapsang. So Ahun sent his lords to their several places with their assistants, and after that he began the colonization of angels in his heavens. And in 1 year he had raised up from Jaeth more than 1,000 million and prepared them with houses, hospitals, nurseries, and factories, and all such things, and places as required in Hada. In the 2nd year, he delivered another 1,000 million, more than half of whom he had to be taken away from the earth by force. And these he also housed and provided with teachers and overseers in like manner. So by the time Samati, god of Zarathustra, was prepared to travel to Jaeth, visiting the kings and queens, the lords of Ahon, had so far banished the Jujas that were powerless to prevent the decrees of the Father's word. And when Zarathustra went into Jaeth, behold, the lords in heaven were with him, and God of the word was with him, and the kings and queens of earth were powerless before him. And when Zarathustra went to a city, and being inspired by God, said, fall down, ye walls. Behold, the angels of heaven rent the walls, and they fell. And when Zarathustra said, come forth, ye spirits of the dead, behold, the Lord seized the Jujas and held them up so that mortals could see them. And when Zarathustra said, O Orzman, give thy children food, behold, the angels had previously provided fish and fruit, which they left fall upon the people, the time and place being previously arranged betwixt them and God of the world. Thus did Ahoan's dominions extend down to mortals. Thus became the word of Zarathustra, Jehovah's word, to mortals. And now Fragapatti, chief over all, was coming to inspect the labors of his Lord God, Ahoan, and of Samati. Ahoan had sent commands to his lords and to assistants to return to Sanghi and remain 3 days in recreation. And Ahoan commanded the captains of the colonies of heaven to come and to bring them as many of their pupils and subjects as possible. And it came to pass when Fragapatti's Avanza came to Sanghi, there were assembled upward of 2,000 million souls to witness the pageantry and proceedings. Ahoan had provided the means and faculties that these things should be magnificently carried out. I'm going to leave that there. Very interesting read. Sorry I butchered everything. Not trying to, and I'm actually trying to pronounce things as I see them. Doesn't work out all the way. We're almost done with this very long chapter, but I want to keep these short so that we're not being bombarded. So I'm going to leave it there. Protection, light, love, and shielding to everybody. Please don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And if you would like to help me out, all the links will be down below in the description box. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, following me, and helping me along this journey. And until next time, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Please be safe, be seen. Take conscious breaths, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.